The hall of the Galactic Council was built to make visitors feel small. The ceiling rose so high that it faded into soft light. The floor was made of dark stone that reflected shapes like a quiet mirror. Rows of floating seats surrounded a wide-open space in the center, where decisions were made that could change entire worlds. On this day, the hall was full. Representatives from more than 40 star systems were present. Some had bodies covered in metal plates, some floated inside clear shells filled with glowing gas. Others looked almost human, but moved in strange, slow ways. They talked in low voices, confident and relaxed, because most of them believed they already knew how this meeting would end. At the center of the hall stood a single human diplomat. His name was Arlen Voss. He wore a simple dark uniform with no medals. His hands were empty. His face was calm, but his eyes showed that he understood the danger of this moment. Humanity had waited many years for this chance to speak as equals. Now that chance was about to disappear. Behind him stood another human. This man did not wear a uniform. He wore plain, dark clothes, fitted and neat. He was tall, but not unusually so. His hair was short. His face showed no emotion. He did not look at the council members. He did not look at the screens or the guards. He simply stood there, still and silent, like a shadow that had decided to take human form. His name was Mara Kale. Most of the council barely noticed him. To them, he was only a bodyguard, a weak one at that. No armor, no visible weapon, no badge of rank. Compared to the heavily armed guards of other species, he looked almost embarrassing. A low chime echoed through the hall. "The emergency session of the Galactic Council is now in order," announced the central voice, calm and emotionless. "The matter before us is the status of the Sol system and the species known as humans." Murmurs spread through the chamber. A large figure rose from one of the higher seats. The being's skin was gray and thick, marked with deep lines. Its eyes were bright and sharp. "This council has delayed this decision for too long," the figure said. "The Krith Union has been patient, but patience has limits." A massive display appeared in the air. It showed thousands of warships moving in perfect formation through deep space. Their shapes were sharp and aggressive, their weapons glowing faintly with power. "These ships are already in position," the Kryth representative continued. "Earth is surrounded. Your species cannot escape. You cannot fight. You can only choose how this ends." Arlen Voss took a slow breath. He had expected this. Humanity had known this moment would come. But still, hearing it spoken so clearly made his chest feel tight. He stepped forward. "The human race asks for dialogue," Arlen said. His voice was steady, clear, and calm. "We have never attacked another star nation. We have followed every rule this council placed before us. We ask only for time." Several council members made sounds of amusement. Time. Humans always asked for time. The Kryth representative let out a harsh laugh. "Time is exactly what you no longer have," it said. "Your world holds resources we require. Your system lies on a critical trade route. You are in the way." Arlen opened his mouth to reply, but another voice cut in. "Why does the human bring only one guard?" The question came from a slender being with pale blue skin and long fingers. Its eyes moved toward Marek. "Other diplomats bring teams," the being continued. "Heavy armor." Shield units. Attack drones. The human brings one soft creature who stands and does nothing. More quiet laughter followed. Arlen did not turn around. He did not look at Marcus. He had been told never to speak for him. "He is sufficient," Arlen said. That made the laughter louder. Marek remained still. Inside him, systems monitored everything, sound levels to be enjoyed. Energy shifts, communication waves. He was listening to more than voices. He was listening to the room itself. The Kryth representative raised one clawed hand. "Enough," it said. "We will be generous," the Kryth Union offers humanity a choice. The display shifted. A timer appeared. 3 minutes. Agree to full surrender and integration, the Krythe said, or your planet will be reduced to silence. The hall grew quiet. Some council members looked away. Others watched with interest. A few felt discomfort but did not speak. This was how the galaxy worked. Stronger powers took what they wanted. The Constantinopoli watched and recorded. Arlen felt his pulse quicken, but his face stayed calm. 3 minutes, he repeated softly. Behind him, Marak raised his head for the first time. It was a small movement, almost nothing. But the lights above flickered for a brief moment, like a breath being held. No one reacted. Marak's eyes moved across the chamber, not to faces, but to hidden layers of systems. Defense grids, data relays. Yes. Emergency overrides. He saw the Council's technology the way a doctor sees veins under skin. Primitive, he thought. The timer began to count down. 2 minutes. And 50 seconds, Silence spoke again. The human race will not surrender, he said. But we will not threaten either. We ask the Council to intervene. The Krythe representative leaned forward. The Council has no power here, it said. Only witnesses. Merrick took 1 step forward. The sound of his boot touching the floor echoed more loudly than it should have. Several council guards turned their heads. Human, one of them warned. Remain in your position. Merrick stopped. He looked toward Arlen. Arlen turned his head slightly, just enough to see Marek from the corner of his eye. They shared a look. It lasted less than a second. Ellen nodded. The timer showed 2 minutes remaining. Merrick stepped forward again. This individual is not registered to speak, the central voice announced. Merrick did not look at the source of the voice. Permission granted, Arlen said quietly. The hall froze. No diplomat had ever done that. No bodyguard had ever spoken during a council threat session. Mark finally faced the chamber. His voice was calm, almost gentle. 3 minutes is excessive, he said. Confusion rippled through the council. The Krythe representative stared at him. What did you say? Merrick took another step. Sensors began to react. Not alarms, just confusion. Readings that did not match any known pattern. I said 3 minutes is excessive, Mark repeated. This situation requires less. A sharp sound rang out as several Krythe guards raised their weapons. Enough, the Krythe representative snapped. Silence him. The weapons locked. Then nothing happened. No blast, no movement. The guards looked down at their weapons in confusion. Marek lifted his wrist. On it was a simple band. No lights. No symbols. I advise you to stand down, he said. The timer showed 1 minute and 20 seconds. The Krythe representative tried to issue another command. Its words did not transmit. Across the hall, screens flickered. Data streams froze. The massive fleet image stuttered, then paused. Murmurs turned into uneasy whispers. What is happening? One council member asked. Mark lowered his hand. This council is operating on outdated assumptions, he said. You believe humans survived by chance, by luck, by hiding. He looked directly at the Krythe representative. You are mistaken. The representative tried to move, but its seat locked in place. What are you? It demanded. Marak did not answer immediately. He glanced at the timer. 30 seconds remained. I am a bodyguard, he said at last. My role is to protect my diplomat. Arlen stood taller, Mark continued, and to end threats before they become wars. The lights dimmed slightly. Every system in the chamber began to report errors, not failures, changes. The council realized something then. This human had not brought a weapon. He had brought authority. The timer reached 10 seconds. The Krythe representative's voice shook. Stop this, it said. This is an act of war. Marek shook his head. No, he said. This is the end of one. The timer reached 0. The display vanished. Silence filled the hall. No explosion came, no destruction, no screams. Only the quiet understanding that something irreversible had begun. Mark stepped back to his original position behind Arlen. He lowered his head and waited. The hall was quiet, but the quiet was heavy. Every being present felt it. The Christ fleet, once menacing and loud on the screens, was now frozen. Even the council members could not move some of their own controls. It was as if the entire room had been held in a single breath. Arlen Voss stood straight, his face calm, but his heart raced. He had no idea if Marek had used force or something else. He only knew humans had survived worse than this, and now the galaxy was learning that lesson in real time. Marek Hale remained behind him, silent again, but his eyes scanned the chamber. He did not glance at anyone in particular. He watched patterns, waves, signals. The faint pulses of energy that moved through the council's systems. He understood how the other species' technology worked and how it could be stopped, redirected, or controlled. Marek was trained for this, for moments when diplomacy alone could fail and force was not enough. The Kryth representative tried to speak again, but no sound came from its mouth. The words formed, but they did not transmit. Its claws tapped nervously on the armrest. It realized only now that the human was not merely a bodyguard, not merely a tool. This one human could control, manipulate, and halt their systems faster than any fleet could fire. A council officer, whose body was made entirely of shimmering light, floated forward. Its form flickered with concern. "You're human," it said, pointing toward Marek. "What has he done? Is this aggression or some unknown protocol?" Arben cleared his throat. "Neither," he said. "Marek does not wish to harm anyone. He only ensures threats end before they can begin. This is how humans survive. This is how we protect ourselves and others." The Kryth representative roared, though the sound barely left its throat. "Do you threaten me, weak human? We have ships, weapons, entire worlds at our command. Do you think your species can stop us?" Marek took a single step forward. He was calm, slow, deliberate. He held no weapon, yet every being in the room felt a subtle pressure, a quiet force that seemed to warn without moving that any wrong action would be pointless. "You misunderstand," Marek said. His voice was firm, but neutral. We do not threaten, we prevent. You are armed. You have fleet. I have no fleet. You have numbers. I have no army. And yet, he paused, and for the first time council members noticed a quiet intensity in his gaze. You are already defeated. The Kryth representative froze. Its claws gripped the armrests. Its voice shook, even though no sound left it. What do you mean?" Marek lifted his hand slowly. From his wrist he drew a small device, no larger than a metal bracelet. It glowed faintly. It was simple in appearance, almost too simple. Some council members whispered among themselves, surely a human with such a small tool could not control the Christ fleet? Surely it was a trick of perception, a coincidence. The device pulsed once, a soft glow traveling through the air. Screens flickered. Communication lines froze. The massive images of Christ's warships broke apart, frozen mid-flight. Every weapon and every engine paused. The Kryth commander's eyes widened in horror. Its fleet, millions of kilometers away, stopped completely. Not a missile launched, not a thruster fired. The Kryth fleet was under the control of something they could not understand. The council members gasped. Some backed away. Some floated higher, instinctively seeking distance. Many whispered. A few species tried to scan Marek with their sensors, but the readings were strange, impossible to classify. Every system he touched obeyed him, and every attempt to resist failed. Arlen remained calm. "Marek does not seek conquest," he said softly. "He shows what humans have learned." We understand war, but we choose not to fight unless necessary. We end conflict before it can grow. We prevent suffering before it spreads. The Christ representative trembled. You cannot control us. You are only one human. Merrick's eyes did not move. His voice was quiet but deliberate. Numbers do not matter. Technology does not matter. Decisions and understanding do. You rely on fleets, weapons, and fear. We rely on knowledge, on foresight, on certainty. That is why you are defeated in 3 minutes. A council member, a large being covered in golden plates, floated forward. This is impossible, it said. No single individual could. Marek's eyes moved briefly to the being, but his tone remained calm. I am not an individual here. I represent humanity's understanding. One human, yes, but one trained for this. One who has prepared for the worst for thousands of years. Your fleets are strong, but you do not see it. You cannot see what humans have survived. You cannot see how we endure. You cannot see that one human can prevent billions of deaths. The Krith representative slammed its claws on the armrest. Stop this, it demanded. You cannot do this. You are violating council protocols. The words fell into silence. Every attempt at communication failed. Every emergency protocol designed to regain control flickered and froze. Merrick's device, so simple, so small, had become the center of power. Nothing moved without permission. Nothing functioned without human authorization. Arlen stepped forward slightly. This is not cruelty, he said. This is restraint. Humans have learned to survive not by conquering, but by ending threats before they become wars. We can destroy, yes, but we choose to stop. You are still alive, still whole, because we choose peace over chaos. That is our strength. Murmurs spread through the council. Some species nodded, though uneasily. Others looked uncertain, not sure if they should fear or respect humans. The Krith representative glared at Marek, but its weapons, its ships, its communication, all were frozen. It had no choice but to listen. Marek stepped back slightly toward Arlen. He did not speak again. He did not move aggressively. He simply stood, a quiet figure, radiating calm authority. The council began to understand it. This was not a human trick, not a bluff, not a momentary display. This was control. Humans had survived centuries, even millennia, by understanding when to act and when to wait. They had survived diseases that killed entire colonies, natural disasters that destroyed civilizations, and wars that wiped out species. Humans had learned strategy, patience, and precision, and now one human had ended the immediate threat to Earth without firing a single shot. The Krythe representative's voice shook again. Why do you spare us? Arbiton answered. Because destruction is easy, control is harder. Humans survive by knowing the cost of conflict. We act decisively, but we do not destroy without reason. Your fleets remain intact, your people remain alive. That is human choice. A council member whispered to another. We have underestimated them, it said. All these years we thought they were weak, but this one human. Arlen raised a hand slightly. Marek is not just a bodyguard. He represents what humans have become, not the strongest by appearance. Not the fastest, not the largest, but precise, disciplined, and capable of ending wars before they start. That is why we survive. That is why Earth stands today. The Krythe representative's eyes widened. For the first time, it showed real fear. It tried to threaten again, tried to launch a command, but nothing worked. Every weapon, every command line, every fleet controller was frozen, waiting for human permission. Marek did not give that permission yet. He simply stood, calm, watching, waiting. Arlen turned slightly, so only Marco could hear. Are you ready? He asked. Marek nodded once, simple, small, almost invisible, but full of intent. The council understood. This was the moment they had all feared. Humans did not need fleets to command. Humans did not need armies to conquer. One trained human could change the course of a war in minutes. The Kryth representative's claws shook. It had no choice but to submit if it wished to survive. Its fleet was frozen, its weapons offline, and its communications silent. It was trapped by intelligence and understanding, not by brute force. Arlen straightened. "This is the human way," he said. "We do not start wars, but we end them decisively when necessary. You are witnessing humanity's method of survival. Learn it well." A faint shiver passed through the council chamber. Even species that had once mocked humans now felt something new. Respect. Fear. Awe. They did not yet understand fully what humans were capable of, but they understood the result. The war that was about to start, the war they had all anticipated, had ended. Not with explosions, not with battles, not with destruction, but with control and precision. Marek lowered his hand. The devices still hummed faintly, but he did not activate any further systems. The Kryth fleet remained frozen, waiting for permission that might never come. For a moment, the council was silent. Every representative stared. They looked at Arlen, at Marek, and at each other. They realized the galaxy had changed. Humanity had been underestimated, but now the consequences were clear. One human could stop a war before it began. One human could hold the fate of billions in a single moment, and the galaxy would never forget it. The council chamber remained silent after the Kryth fleet froze. The glow of their stopped ships filled the display screens, casting cold light over the beings in the room. Some council members could not hide the fear in their eyes, others were too proud to admit it, but all of them sensed the same truth. Humans were not what they had imagined. Arlen Voss remained standing, calm as ever, but his mind worked fast. He knew that Marek Hale had just performed something the galaxy had never seen before. It was more than skill. It was understanding, timing, and control. Humans had survived for thousands of years because of moments like this. One correct decision could stop chaos. One wrong, one could end everything. Marek did not move from his position behind Arlen. His eyes, however, scanned every system in the room. He saw the council's security grids, the Kryth communication arrays, and the hidden sensors built into the walls. Every signal, every pulse, every layer of technology was open to him. But Marek's mind did not rush. He knew control was not about haste. It was about precision. The Kryth representative floated forward, trembling slightly. Its skin was gray and rough, and its many eyes darted nervously. It opened its mouth, but, again, no sound came out. Every command it tried to issue to its fleet was blocked. Every attempt to communicate failed. For the first time in its life, it was powerless. Arlen spoke quietly, so only Marek and the Kryth representative could hear. "You do not need to destroy them," he said. "Control is enough. They will understand the choice humans offer, live and learn, or resist and fail." His hand moved slightly, activating the small device on his wrist again. The Kryth fleet began to respond, but not as weapons. Their systems aligned in a way Marek dictated, forming a barrier around Earth that could not be breached, while still keeping the ships intact. It was a demonstration of power without destruction. The council members leaned forward, whispering to each other, "They can control the fleet," one said, voice shaking. "One human can control thousands of ships." Another whispered, "Not just ships, the entire Kryth system. Their weapons, their engines. Everything." A blue-skinned representative floated closer to Arlen. "This is impossible. How can a single human do this?" "Their species is weak, fragile. Their weapons are primitive." Oberon shook his head. "Weakness is not about size or strength. Weakness is about fear and indecision. Humans have survived because we act when others hesitate. Marek represents what humans have learned over centuries: control, knowledge, and timing." The Kryth representative's claws shook. It tried again to issue commands to its fleet, but the ships did not respond. Not a single missile fired, not a single engine moved. Its fleet, a force meant to destroy worlds, was paralyzed. Marek took a step forward. "You rely on fear," he said. "You believe numbers and weapons win battles. But humans do not fight like that. We understand consequences. We prevent wars before they grow. You are defeated because you do not understand. You never understood." The Kryth representative's many eyes widened. You cannot. "You are mistaken," Marek interrupted. "You are already under human control. Your fleet obeys. Your weapons obey. Your systems obey. But I do not destroy. I choose restraint. You are still alive because humans decide when to stop, not because we cannot continue." A council member made of silver light floated closer, observing Marek carefully. "If what you say is true," it said, "then one human could command not just fleets, but entire star systems. One human could stop a war before it begins." Marek did not answer directly. He only looked at Arlen, waiting for permission. Arlen nodded slightly. Marek's device pulsed again. The Kryth fleet slowly aligned in formation, forming a ring around Earth. Not aggressive, not threatening. A clear message. Any attack would fail before it could begin. The Kryth representative floated closer to the council floor, trembling. "Why? Why do you spare us?" it asked. Its voice was barely audible, even if it could speak. "Because destruction is easy," Arlen said. "Control is difficult. Humans understand the cost of war. We can destroy, yes, but we choose not to. That is our strength. That is why we survive." Another council member whispered to a nearby colleague. "We have underestimated them," it said. "All these years we believed they were weak, but one human stopped a fleet in minutes." Marek stepped back, returning to his position behind Arlen. He did not move aggressively. He did not threaten. He simply stood, a calm figure of authority. The council realized something profound. Humans did not need to fight to win. Humans did not need fleets or armies to assert dominance. One trained human, understanding technology, strategy, and consequences, could prevent entire wars from starting. The Kryth representative's voice shook. Do you threaten us?" "No," Marek said quietly. "We do not threaten. We prevent you are still alive, because humans choose peace when possible. You are free to learn that lesson." Some council members leaned back, still uncertain. Fear and respect mixed in their expressions. For years, humans had been dismissed as primitive, weak, emotional, unfit for the galaxy. Now, that assumption had been shattered. Arlen looked across the hall. "This is the human way," he said. "We act with precision, not force. We stop threats before they spread. We survive because we understand consequences. That is why Earth remains safe today." The Kryth representative's eyes darted to its frozen fleet. For the first time, it understood the limits of its power. Numbers meant nothing. Technology meant nothing. Knowledge and understanding were stronger than the largest fleet in the galaxy. Mark spoke again. "Your weapons, your ships, your commands, they are now tools. Tools that can be used wisely or left unused. You are alive because humans decide restraint. Do not mistake this mercy for weakness." The council members began to murmur among themselves. Some whispered, One human controlled an entire empire's fleet." Others said, "This changes everything." "We misjudged them. We always did." Arlen nodded slightly to Marek. "Are we ready?" he asked. Marek's eyes flicked briefly to him, then back to the chamber. He nodded. Arlen addressed the Kryth representative. "You have a choice. You may continue your aggression and risk complete loss, or you may learn from this moment. Humans do not destroy without reason. Humans do not conquer without cause. You are still alive because we choose peace. The Kryth representative's claws shook violently. Its fleet remained frozen. For the first time, it felt helpless. It had ruled systems, commanded armies, and threatened countless worlds. Now, it was powerless before a single human. Marek did not advance. He did not attack. He simply waited. Calm, silent. A quiet reminder that humans act with purpose. The Council observed in awe. They had watched species control fleets, dominate planets, and wage wars that lasted decades. None had seen anything like this. None had witnessed restraint so absolute, control so precise, or power so understated. "Why do humans survive?" asked a Silver Council member. "They should have been destroyed long ago. Weak bodies, primitive technology, short lifespans. How do they endure?" Arlen smiled faintly. Because humans understand the cost of mistakes. Humans understand the value of decisions. We do not act without purpose. We do not waste life. That is why one human can do what entire fleets cannot. That is why humanity stands. The Christ representative lowered its gaze. It understood something it had never understood before. Raw strength is not victory. Numbers do not guarantee survival. Knowledge, restraint, and timing can defeat the strongest force in the galaxy. Marek returned fully to his place behind Arlen. His device hummed softly, maintaining control without aggression. He was a quiet guardian, a reminder that humans were more than they appeared. The Council began to shift. Fear turned into respect. The beings who had once mocked humans now saw them in a new light. They whispered to each other, "They are not weak. They are precise. They are dangerous, not in violence, but in wisdom." Erwelin turned to the Council. "This demonstration is not a threat," he said. "It is a lesson. Humanity survives because we understand when to act, when to wait, and when to prevent harm. That is our way. That is our strength." The Kryth representative floated higher, shaking. It could do nothing. Its fleets were frozen, its commands ignored, and its power neutralized by one human standing behind a diplomat. For the first time, the galaxy understood that humans were not weak, not primitive, and not to be dismissed. Mark's eyes scanned the room one last time. He saw the Council, the Kryth, and the other observers. They were learning a dangerous truth. Humans act with purpose. They act with precision. And they survive where others fail. Arlen placed a hand gently on Mark's shoulder. "It is done," he said quietly. Marek nodded. The device's hum slowed. The Kryth fleet remained intact, frozen, waiting for future instructions. But for now, no attack would come. No destruction would follow. The Council, for the first time in history, watched a human not as prey, not as a weak species, but as a force capable of shaping events faster than entire fleets. The galaxy had changed in 3 minutes, and it had begun with one quiet bodyguard. The chamber remained silent. The hum of the device faded into the background. Marek returned fully to his calm, quiet presence. Arlen stood tall. Humanity had survived again. Not by luck, not by weapons, but by knowledge, control, and the quiet power of a single human ready to act. The Kryth representative floated silently, its many eyes scanning the hall with fear and confusion. Its fleet remained frozen around Earth, a perfect ring of ships, engines halted and weapons inactive. The Council members watched, some leaning forward, some shifting nervously, as the reality of what had happened settled over them. Humanity had acted in a way no one had expected. One human had stopped an entire fleet in minutes. Arlen Voss stepped forward. His face was calm, but his mind was alert. He understood the importance of this moment. Marek Hale had demonstrated control, restraint, and precision, but the Council and the Kryth had not fully grasped the depth of humanity's strength. The next steps would define how the galaxy saw humans from now on. "Your fleets are halted," Arlen said, his voice steady. At the end of an afterbook, there was an uptake, and there was to get over with a chest, and there was to achieve the money sent. Your people are unharmed. This is not an act of war, but a demonstration of what humans can do. We do not destroy without reason, and we do not attack without cause. That is our way. The Kryth representative's claws trembled. It tried to speak, but its voice faltered. It was trapped by a force it could not see or fight. It had relied on intimidation, on overwhelming numbers, but all of that was useless against one human bodyguard who knew precisely what to do. A council member made of silver strands of light drifted closer. This is unprecedented, it said. We have seen fleets control fleets, species conquer planets, empires wage wars for decades, but never have we seen one individual stop a fleet without firing a shot. Arlen nodded. Humans survive by understanding. We act with purpose. We prevent conflict before it spreads. This is not aggression. This is discipline. This is humanity. The Kryth representative floated closer to the council floor. Its claws raised, but it could do nothing. Every command it attempted to send to its ships failed. Every system it tried to activate remained frozen. The power it had relied on for centuries was now neutralized by a single human. Marek moved slightly, adjusting the device on his wrist. It pulsed faintly, maintaining control. He did not attack. He did not harm. He only ensured that no reckless action could occur. The Kryth fleet was still powerful, but it was under control without destruction. "Why do you spare us?" the Kryth representative asked, its voice trembling. Arlen answered, "Because humans understand the cost of war. Destruction is easy. Control is difficult. We survive because we act decisively, but we choose restraint. You are alive because we choose peace." Some council members whispered among themselves. "They are not weak," one said. "We believed they were primitive. We believed they were weak. But one human has controlled an empire's fleet." Another said, "This changes everything. The assumptions we made about humanity are wrong, deadly wrong." Oberlin turned slightly to Marek. "Are you ready to continue?" he asked quietly. Marek nodded once. Calm. Precise. Ready. Arlen addressed the council again. "This demonstration is meant to show what humans can do and why we must be respected. Humanity does not destroy without reason, but we end threats before they grow. That is our way. That is why Earth stands." The Kryth representative's many eyes darted to its frozen fleet. For the first time, it realized that numbers and weapons did not guarantee victory. Knowledge, understanding, and the ability to act decisively mattered more than sheer power. Marek stepped forward. His voice was quiet but firm. "You rely on intimidation, on numbers, on fear. Humans survive because we understand consequences. We prevent conflict. We act when others hesitate. That is why we endure. That is why one human can stop a fleet where billions of your soldiers could not." A council member made of shimmering metal leaned forward. "If this is true," it said, "then one human could control not just fleets, but entire systems. One human could stop a war before it even begins." Marek did not answer. He only waited, standing behind Arlen, ready to act again if necessary. The Kryth representative lowered its gaze, fear evident in every movement. It understood that it had no power. Its weapons, its fleets, its commands, all were meaningless against human understanding. One human had changed the balance of power in the galaxy. Arlen spoke again. "You have a choice. You can continue aggression and risk total loss, or you can learn from this moment. Humans do not destroy without cause. Humans do not conquer without reason. You are still alive because we choose peace." The council began to whisper, some in disbelief, some in awe. "One human controlled a fleet," one said. "We always underestimated them, but they are precise, disciplined, and capable of ending wars in minutes." The Kryth representative floated higher, its posture tense. It could do nothing. Its fleets were frozen, its commands ignored, and its power neutralized. For the first time, it understood humans were not to be dismissed. Marek's eyes scanned the chamber. He saw council members, the Kryth representative, and all others present. They were learning a dangerous truth. Humans act with purpose. They act with precision. They survive where others fail. Arlen placed a hand gently on Marek's shoulder. "It is done," he said quietly. Marek nodded. The device's hum continued softly, keeping the Kryth fleet under control without aggression. The Council, for the first time, saw humans not as weak, primitive creatures, but as a force capable of shaping events faster than fleets, faster than weapons, faster than empires. The galaxy had changed in minutes, and it had started with one quiet bodyguard. Silence settled over the chamber. The council members, the Kryth representative, and all observers stared at Marek and Arlen. They understood that humans survived not by brute force, but by knowledge, timing, and restraint.
Arlen spoke one last time.
"This is the human way. We do not act without purpose. We stop threats before they spread. We survive because we understand consequences. That is our strength. That is why Earth stands today." The Kryth representative, for the first time, lowered its head. Its fleet remained frozen, but it was alive. Its people were safe. They had been spared by humans who could have destroyed them in moments. Ajrak returned fully to his position behind Arlen. He was a quiet figure again, but his presence spoke volumes. Humans did not need armies to assert dominance. One trained human could prevent entire wars from starting. Council members whispered among themselves, some in fear, some in awe. They realized that their assumptions about humans were wrong. Humans were precise, disciplined, and capable of ending wars in ways no other species could imagine. Arlen nodded to Marek. "It is enough for now," he said. "The lesson has been learned." Marek's device hummed faintly, maintaining control but not actively intervening. The Kryth fleet remained frozen, a reminder that humans acted with purpose, not chaos. The council watched in silence. The galaxy had changed. One human had stopped a war before it began. The Kryth representative understood, finally, that survival was not about power alone, but about understanding, timing, and decisive action. Arlen turned to the chamber one last time. "Humans survive because we choose restraint. We act decisively, but we do not destroy. That is why one human can stop a war in minutes. That is why the galaxy must understand and respect humanity." Marek's eyes scanned the room again, calm and precise. He was the embodiment of the human way, control without chaos, power without destruction, survival through understanding. The council members nodded slowly. Fear had shifted to respect. Humanity would no longer be underestimated. The Kryth representative floated silently, its fleet frozen but its people alive. For the first time, it understood the full scope of human strength. The galaxy had witnessed a new reality. Humans survived because they acted with purpose. They ended threats before they grew. They commanded respect, not by force, but by knowledge and restraint. Marek remained behind Arlen, silent and watchful. The Kryth fleet was under control, but the message was clear. Humans were not weak. Humans were not primitive. Humans were precise, disciplined, and capable of stopping wars before they began. The chamber remained quiet. Council members whispered among themselves, Kryth eyes darted nervously, and all observers understood that humanity had changed the balance of power forever. One human, one bodyguard, one demonstration had shifted the galaxy's understanding, and the galaxy would never forget it. The Kryth representative remained frozen in place, its fleet suspended like a net in space. Silence hung over the council chamber, thick and heavy, as every member processed what had happened. A single human had stopped an entire empire from attacking, and no one had fired a single shot. Arlen Voss stepped forward, his posture calm but firm. "This is the moment to decide," he said. "The Kryth Union may continue aggression, or it may accept humanity's way. Humans do not destroy without cause. We act decisively, but we stop before causing unnecessary loss. You are alive because of that choice. The Krith representative's eyes widened. It trembled slightly. It had no idea how to respond. Its fleet, weapons, and command systems were all under human control. For the first time, it understood the power humans could wield, not by brute force, but by knowledge and control. Marek Hale remained behind Arlen, silent as always, his eyes scanning every system, every signal, every weak point. He was calm, but alert. The Christ fleet remained frozen under his control, a perfect demonstration of humanity's precision. One of the council members, a being made entirely of shifting metallic threads, floated closer to Arlen. This is unprecedented, it said. No species has ever exercised such control with so few resources. One human could stop entire fleets, entire armies. How is this possible? Arlen's voice was calm. Humans survive because we understand the cost of mistakes. We do not act recklessly. We act decisively. Marek represents what humans have learned over thousands of years. We stop threats before they grow. That is why one human can hold an empire at bay. The Kryth representative's claws trembled. Why do you not destroy us? It asked, its voice weak. Because destruction is easy, Arlen said. Control is more difficult. Humans survive because we act decisively, but we choose restraint. That is our strength. You are alive because we choose peace, not because we cannot harm you. Some council members whispered among themselves. One human stopped an entire fleet, said one, voice trembling. We always underestimated them. We were wrong. Another whispered, this changes everything. Humans are precise, disciplined, and capable of ending wars before they even start. Arlen nodded slightly to Marek. Are you ready to continue? He asked quietly. Marek's eyes flicked to him. He nodded, calm, ready. Arlen addressed the council again. This demonstration is not meant to humiliate or punish. It is to show the galaxy that humans survive because we understand consequences. We prevent war before it spreads. That is our way. The Kryth representative's eyes darted to its frozen fleet. It understood for the first time that raw numbers, weapons, and technology could not ensure victory. Knowledge, understanding, and decisive action mattered more than the largest fleet in the galaxy. Marek took a step forward. You rely on fear, he said. You rely on intimidation. Humans survive because we understand the cost of every action. We prevent conflict. We act when others hesitate. That is why one human can stop a fleet where billions of your soldiers could not. The council began to murmur, some in disbelief, some in awe. If one human can do this, said a silver-skinned member, then humans can control entire star systems. They can stop wars before they even begin. He only waited, standing behind Arlen, a calm figure of absolute control. The Kryth representative lowered its gaze. It was powerless. Its weapons, its fleets, and its commands were all meaningless. One human had shifted the balance of power in the galaxy. Arlen spoke again. You have a choice. You can continue aggression and risk total loss, or you can learn from this moment. Humans do not destroy without reason. Humans do not conquer without cause. You are alive because we choose peace. The council whispered among themselves. One human controlled a fleet, they said. We always underestimated them, but now we understand. Humans are precise, disciplined, and capable of ending wars in minutes. The Kryth representative floated higher, tense and trembling. Its fleets were frozen. Its commands were ignored. For the first time it realized that humans were not to be dismissed. Mark's eyes scanned the chamber. He saw council members, the Kryth representative, and all others present. They were learning the truth. Humans act with purpose. They act with precision. They survive where others fail. Arlen placed a hand gently on Mark's shoulder. It is done, he said quietly. Marek nodded. The device's hum continued softly, keeping the Krythe fleet under control without aggression. The Council saw humans not as weak, primitive creatures, but as a force capable of shaping events faster than fleets or weapons. The galaxy had changed in minutes, and it had begun with one quiet bodyguard. The chamber remained silent. Council members whispered among themselves. The Krythe representative's fleet was still frozen, a reminder that humans acted with purpose. Humans had ended a war before it began. "Why do humans survive?" asked one council member. "They should have been destroyed long ago. Weak bodies, primitive technology, short lifespans. How do they endure?" Arlen smiled faintly. "Dang! Because humans understand the cost of mistakes. We act with purpose. We do not waste life. We prevent conflict before it grows. One human can stop a fleet because we know when to act and when to wait." The Krythe representative's eyes widened. You spared us?" said Marek, stepping forward. "Because humans choose restraint. You are still alive because we decide peace is better than destruction." Some council members leaned back, fear mixed with respect in their eyes. Humans had been dismissed as weak. Now that assumption was shattered. Auerland turned to the chamber. "Humans act with precision. We survive because we understand consequences. We prevent war before it spreads. That is why Earth stands today." Marek's eyes scanned the room. He was the embodiment of the human way: control without chaos, power without destruction, survival through understanding. Council members nodded slowly. Fear shifted into respect. Humans would no longer be underestimated. The Krythe representative floated silently, its fleet frozen, but its people alive. For the first time, it understood the full scope of human strength. The galaxy had witnessed a new reality. Humans survived because they acted with purpose. They ended threats before they grew. They commanded respect, not by force, but by knowledge and restraint. Marek remained behind Arlen, silent and watchful. The Krythe fleet was under control, but the message was clear. Humans were not weak. Humans were precise, disciplined, and capable of stopping wars before they began. The chamber remained quiet. Council members whispered among themselves. Krythe eyes darted nervously. All observers understood humanity had changed the balance of power forever. One human, one bodyguard, one demonstration had shifted the galaxy's understanding. Arlen placed a hand on Marek's shoulder. "It is enough for now," he said. Marek's device hummed faintly, keeping the Krythe fleet under control but not actively intervening. The Krythe ships remained frozen, a reminder that humans acted with purpose, not chaos. Council members slowly began to murmur among themselves, some in awe, some in fear. They realized their assumptions about humans were wrong. Humans were precise, disciplined, and capable of ending wars in ways no other species could imagine. Arlen nodded. "The lesson has been learned. Humanity survives because we understand consequences. We prevent conflict. We act decisively, but we stop before unnecessary harm occurs. That is our strength." Marek scanned the room one final time. He saw council members, Krythe representatives, and all observers. He saw that the galaxy had learned a new truth. Humans act with purpose, precision, and restraint. One human had stopped an entire fleet. The Krythe representative lowered its head, finally understanding. Its fleet was frozen, but it was alive. Its people were alive. They had been spared by humans who could have destroyed them in minutes. Marek returned to his position behind Arlen. He was a quiet figure again, but his presence spoke volumes. Humans did not need armies to assert dominance. One trained human could prevent entire wars from starting, council members whispered. Fear had shifted to respect. Humanity would no longer be underestimated. The Krythe representative understood that survival was not about power alone, but about knowledge, restraint, and decisive action. Arlen looked across the chamber. Humans act with purpose. We end threats before they spread. We survive because we understand consequences. That is our strength, That is why Earth stands today. Marek's eyes scanned the room again, calm and precise. Humans were the embodiment of control without chaos, power without destruction, survival through understanding. The council members nodded. They understood humans were not weak. They understood humans were capable of ending wars before they began. The Kryth representative's fleet was still frozen, a reminder of humanity's strength. The galaxy had changed. One human had stopped a war. One human had shown the power of restraint. The Kryth representative understood the lesson. The council understood the lesson. The galaxy understood the lesson. And humans had done it all without firing a single shot. The council chamber was quiet. The Kryth fleet remained frozen around Earth, suspended in space, its weapons offline, engines still. Council members and observers whispered among themselves, struggling to process what had happened. One human had stopped an entire fleet without firing a single shot. Arlen Voss stood at the center of the chamber. His posture was calm, but his mind raced. Humanity had survived countless threats before. Now the galaxy had seen the results. Marek Hale, his bodyguard, had done more than protect him. He had demonstrated the true power of humanity, intelligence, control, and precision. The Kryth representative floated nervously. Its claws trembled, and its eyes darted across the chamber. Its fleet remained under human control. Every attempt at command failed. The tools it had relied on for centuries now obeyed a human. Fear and disbelief battled across its features. Arlen spoke quietly, addressing both the Kryth and the council. This is your opportunity. You can choose peace and learn from this moment, or continue aggression and face total failure. Humans act decisively, but we stop before causing unnecessary harm. That is our way. That is why Earth stands. The council members whispered among themselves. Some floated higher, instinctively seeking distance. Others leaned forward, studying the humans closely. For years, they had dismissed humanity as weak and primitive. Now they realized humans were precise, disciplined, and capable of stopping wars before they began. A golden-skinned council member floated closer. This is unprecedented, it said. No species has ever exercised control with so few resources. One human has held an empire at bay. How is this possible? Arlen looked at the council member, calm but firm. Humans survive because we understand consequences. We act with purpose. We prevent conflicts before they grow. Marek demonstrates what humanity has learned over thousands of years. One human can end a war in minutes because we know when to act and when to wait. The Kryth representative tried again to issue commands, but nothing worked. Its fleet did not respond. Weapons, engines, communications, all frozen. One human had neutralized an entire empire without harming a single ship. The representative realized finally that numbers and technology were meaningless without understanding and strategy. Marek Hale moved slightly, adjusting the device on his wrist. It pulsed faintly, maintaining control. He did not attack, did not threaten, but every being in the room understood that any attempt at aggression would be useless. "Why do you spare us?" the Kryth representative asked, voice shaking. "Because destruction is easy," Arlen said. "Control is harder. Humans survive because we act decisively, but we choose restraint. You are alive because we choose peace, not because we cannot harm you." Council members whispered, "One human." "Your one human stopped a fleet," said one. "We always underestimated them. We were wrong." Another added, "This changes everything. Humans are capable of ending wars in minutes." "We misjudged them." Airline turned slightly toward Marek. "Are you ready to finalize this?" he asked quietly. Marek's eyes flicked to him. He nodded once, calm, precise, ready. Arlen addressed the Kryth representative. "You have a choice. You can continue aggression and risk total loss, or you can surrender and learn from this. Humans do not destroy without reason. We act decisively, but we choose restraint. You are alive because of that choice. The Kryth representative's many eyes widened. It had no fleet control, no command power, no weapons available. It realized for the first time that survival depended not on power, but on understanding, on respect for humans. A Silver Council member whispered to another, "This is history. One human has changed the balance of the galaxy in minutes. We misjudged them for centuries." The Christ representative's voice shook. We surrender. What must we do?" Arlen nodded. "You will cease all aggression toward Earth. You will respect humanity's sovereignty. Your people will remain unharmed. Your fleet will return to your stations, under your control, but you will follow the Council's rules and respect the human race. This is your chance to survive and learn." Merrick's device pulsed softly, guiding the Kryth fleet back to a neutral formation. Engines restarted slowly. Weapons disengaged, but all ships obeyed the boundaries humanity had set. Not one missile fired. Now, one ship moved beyond the limits humans dictated. Council members watched in awe. The Kryth fleet, the most powerful in their sector, had been tamed by one human bodyguard, and it had been done without destruction, without chaos, and without loss of life. The Kryth representative lowered its head, humbled. "We understand. We will follow your guidance. We thank you for your mercy." Arlaw's voice was calm, authoritative. "Humans do not destroy without reason. We act decisively, but we act with understanding. Oh, you are alive because we chose peace. That is the human way." Murmurs spread through the council. Some species whispered about the strength of humanity, the precision, the discipline. Others were nervous, realizing the galaxy had underestimated humans for centuries. One species even floated back in shock, unable to comprehend the level of control humans had demonstrated. Arlen turned to Marek. "It is done," he said quietly. Marek's eyes scanned the chamber, calm and steady. He had maintained control until the threat was neutralized. Now the Kryth fleet was back in its normal orbit, ready to obey orders, but restrained by the memory of what one human could do. The council began to shift. Whispering became louder. Though no one dared challenge humanity openly, humans were no longer weak. Humans were precise, disciplined, and capable of ending wars before they started. The Kryth representative had learned the most important lesson. One human could control what millions could not. Arlen addressed the council. "This demonstration is not a threat. It is a lesson. Humanity survives because we understand consequences. We prevent conflicts before they grow. We act decisively, but we choose restraint. That is our way. That is why Earth stands." Merrick returned fully to his position behind Arlen, silent and watchful. He did not need to speak. His presence alone reminded everyone that humans acted with purpose and precision. The Kryth representative's fleet had returned to normal formation, but the memory of the humans' control remained. The representative's people had survived because one human had chosen to spare them. They would never forget it, council members whispered in awe. "Humans are different," one said. "We have misjudged them. They are precise, disciplined, capable of ending wars without destruction." Another added, "This changes the galaxy. We must respect humanity from now on." Curlin nodded slightly. "Humans do not seek domination. We seek survival, understanding, and peace. We act decisively, but we end threats before they become wars. That is our strength. That is our way." The Kryth representative lowered its head completely. It understood its place. It had been humbled, and it had survived. Its people were safe, its fleet intact. It had learned the true power of humanity. Marek's eyes swept over the chamber one last time. Every system, every fleet, every signal remained under watch, but there was no threat. Humans had shown the galaxy what they were capable of. Knowledge, restraint, and decisive action were stronger than numbers or weapons. The council slowly nodded, some with fear, some with respect. Humanity had shifted the balance of power in the galaxy. One human, Marek Hale, had stopped an entire fleet. One human had preserved millions of lives without firing a single shot. Arlen turned to the Kryth representative. Go in peace. Return to your stations! Remember the lesson you have learned. Humanity acts decisively, but we do not destroy without reason. Respect us, and we will respect you. That is the human way. The Kryth representative bowed slightly. We understand, it said. We will follow your guidance. We thank you for your mercy. Marek Hale remained behind Arlen, silent, calm, and watchful. The galaxy had seen humans in action. Humans had survived, as they always had, not through brute force, but through understanding, restraint, and knowledge. One human had ended a war before it began. One human had changed the course of history in minutes. The council chamber slowly emptied. Observers whispered. Species spoke in hushed tones. The Kryth representative led its fleet back to normal orbit, humbled but alive. The galaxy had learned a dangerous lesson. Humans were not weak. Humans were precise, disciplined, and capable of preventing wars before they began. Arlen turned to Marek. It is finished, he said quietly. Marek nodded. The hum of the device faded into quiet. The Kryth fleet, intact and restrained, was a living reminder of the human way. The council members would never forget what had happened. Humanity had survived once again, not by weapons, not by fleets, not by numbers, but by knowledge, control, and restraint. The galaxy had learned to respect humans in a way it never had before, and in the quiet one human bodyguard stood behind the Diplomat, calm, ready, precise, and a reminder to all, never underestimate humanity. The war had ended. In 3 minutes,